0517 local time. Steel shutters settle into place. A deep mechanical thump rolls through the forward mount as power comes online. On the bridge, nobody turns their head. They already know what that sound means. The ship has just moved from ordinary patrol to full attention. Not because of an alarm, not because of a dramatic announcement, because something on the screen changed. New surface contact, the radar watch says, voice flat and controlled. Bearing 248, range 21 nautical miles. The Caribbean is calm that morning, almost too calm. The kind of morning that makes the open water look harmless. The sea is smooth. The sun is just high enough to flash across the wake. Traffic is light. Fishing boats stay in their lanes. Commercial vessels follow the clean, predictable lines they always follow. But this contact does not fit. Speed, 9 knots. Course, drifting. AIS, silent. That alone does not make it a problem. It only makes it worth watching. The track holds for 30 seconds, then 40. Then the symbol shifts slightly, just enough to notice. Not wind, not current. A correction. Human. Contact altering course, the watch calls. New heading 185. The bridge gets quieter. Screens glow. The ship holds its speed, holds its course. No turn toward the contact, no move away from it. That matters. Procedure says you do not react to curiosity. You let the picture develop. Range drops. 19 miles. 18. Around the contact, the surface picture becomes clearer. Known vessels, normal movement, predictable routes. But this one stays clean. Too clean. No identification broadcast. No visible flag through the long lens. No name that can be confirmed. Just a low silhouette riding heavier than a vessel that size should. The officer of the deck leans forward. Not nervous, focused. Hail it. The call goes out across open maritime channels. English first, then Spanish. Clear, professional, recorded. Nothing comes back. The contact continues at 9 knots. Then suddenly it accelerates. 12 knots, the watch says. Then 14. Then 16. That is not a mistake. That is a choice. On the bridge, the captain does not raise his voice. He does not need to. Set condition, log everything. The order moves through the ship without drama. Key stations are manned. Cameras wake up. Electronic systems begin listening more carefully, not shouting into the dark, just collecting. Every signal, every flicker, every trace. And the contact keeps coming. At 16 knots, the geometry changes. Closest point of approach tightens. Not a direct collision path, but close enough to demand attention. Close enough to test intent. Another hail goes out, shorter this time. Firmer, still nothing. Through the optics, the hull begins to resolve. Fiberglass, weathered paint, designed to look tired. But the wake tells a different story. The stern digs in. The bow sits heavy. That means weight, a lot of it. Upper. Range 14 miles. The ship still does not maneuver. That is important. A turn would give away initiative. The destroyer keeps her line steady and unmistakable. If the other vessel wants distance, it will have to create that distance itself. Then the contact surges again. Speed now 20 knots. That gets everyone's attention. 20 knots from a boat that size means the engines are working hard. Fuel is being burned fast. Whatever is on board matters enough for someone to push the vessel harder than they should. The captain studies the plot. Then the glass. Then the plot again. No escalation. Prepare intercept assets. Below, teams begin moving. Not running, not rushing. Just trained hands on straps, rails, gear, and checks. On deck, the rigid hull inflatable boats are uncovered. Engines checked. Lines cleared. The contact makes another small turn. Only a few degrees. Just enough to keep the approach uncomfortable. Just enough to say, I know you see me. Range 10 miles. The sea remains calm. Sunlight flashes over the water. From far away, it would look like nothing more than two vessels sharing the same morning. Inside the ship, everyone understands the math. Time is shrinking. If the boat is going to run, it runs now. If it is going to stop, it stops for a reason. At 8 miles, the contact does something unexpected. It slows. Speed dropping, 15 knots, 13. Then it stops completely. Engines to idle. Wake collapsing into ripples. The bridge absorbs it in silence. A vessel that planned to escape does not usually stop in open water. And a vessel that stops here is not finished. The captain nods once. That's our answer. Outside, the calm sea closes around the motionless hull. Inside the ship, the intercept order is already moving, and the clock starts counting in minutes. The order does not echo. It does not need to. Launch the RHIBs. Deck lights shift from white to red. Hands move with practiced precision. Lines are cleared. Cradles unlock. The first rigid hull inflatable drops toward the water, engines already alive, throttles held just below a roar. The second follows moments later, clean and controlled, touching the surface with barely a splash. From the bridge, the picture tightens. The contact sits motionless now. No flag, no visible activity, just a low hull rocking gently in the calm. Bow still heavy, stern still sitting deeper than a working fishing boat should. Maintain course, the captain says. Keep the geometry. The destroyer does not rush in. She does not have to. Her job is command and control. The sensors do the chasing. The ship remains where it can see everything and be seen by everything. The RHIBs accelerate. They do not go straight in. They arc wide, splitting left and right, flattening the angle. It is a textbook approach. Make the unknown vessel divide its attention. Remove blind spots. Reduce options without forcing the main ship to change posture. Range 5 miles. The target does not move. No panic. No frantic scrambling. No one rushing to restart engines. No one grabbing a radio. No one waving for help. That is wrong. A normal crew would react. This vessel stays still, as if it is waiting for the next part of the script. The RHIBs cut across the water at speed. White wakes trail behind them in clean lines. Cameras are rolling. The boarding teams keep their posture firm, controlled, professional. This is not a dramatic raid. It is an inspection until it becomes something else. From the bridge, the electronic watch begins picking up quiet activity. Not alarms, data, short, low-power bursts flicker across the spectrum. Something on that boat is transmitting. Maybe a sat phone, maybe a handheld device trying to reach a tower that does not exist out here. Either way, the silence on open channels is not confusion. It is a choice. At 3 miles, the target finally reacts. One figure appears on deck, then another, then a third. They do not wave. They do not call out. They stand stiffly, hands visible, eyes following the approaching RHIBs. The captain watches through the glass. Log posture, timestamp. The RHIBs slow as they close. Engines drop from a roar to a growl. The water between them and the target smooths out, and the tension tightens with it. Bridge to boarding teams, the officer of the deck says. You are clear to continue. The contact's engines cough once. A brief churn, then nothing. That is a tell. An engine that will not restart quickly is either tired from being pushed too hard, or someone does not want it running once questions begin. At 1 mile, the geometry locks. One RHIB takes position near the bow quarter. The other holds near the stern. Cross coverage. No rush, no shouting. The destroyer adjusts speed slightly, just enough to keep the entire scene inside her watchful envelope. From above, it would look calm, controlled, inevitable. Another hail goes out. Short, direct. Vessel stopped in international waters. State your intentions. This time, there is a response. Not words. One man slowly raises his hands, palms out. Another does the same. The third stays near the cabin, half-turned, eyes moving between the small boats and the destroyer behind them. No flag appears. Visual confirms 3 persons on deck, the RHIB lead reports. No visible danger indicators, hands raised only. Hands raised are not full compliance. They are a pause. The boarding officer studies the hull up close. The paint is chipped just enough to sell the story of age. The nameplate is missing. The deck fittings are newer than they should be. The drains are clogged with residue that does not belong on a fishing boat. The waterline carries fresh weight marks. Be advised, the boarding officer says, this vessel is carrying significant internal mass. The captain nods once. Proceed. By the book. The RHIBs edge closer. Fenders press softly against fiberglass. Hands reach out to test stability. The boat barely moves. That much weight holds it steady like an anchor. The boarding ladder comes up. Boots pause at the first rung. For one moment, everything holds. Sea, steel. Men watching men. Then the first boot steps onto the deck, and the intercept changes shape. The ladder flexes once under weight, then holds. The first sailor steps aboard without looking directly at the men in front of him. Eyes go to footing first. Stability, clearance, space to move. Posture stays calm, controlled, ready, but not aggressive. United States Coast Guard, stand where you are. The words are calm, almost routine. The 3 men do not move. They do not argue either. That is the problem. Real fishermen talk. They complain, they ask questions, they explain. These men say nothing. Their eyes track every movement with the discipline of people who already know what comes next. A second boarder comes up, then a third. The team spreads just enough to control the deck. No rushing, no shouting. Control first, everything else later. Hands where we can see them. Hands stay up. Palms out, still no words. The boarding officer takes in the details quickly. Boots too clean for a working boat. No bait boxes, no nets ready, no ice. And the smell is not fish, it is fuel, oil, and something sharp underneath. Secure the crew. Two sailors move smoothly and deliberately. Restraints come out, wrists together, no resistance. The men comply instantly, almost as if they have practiced the motion before. Another warning sign. One of them glances toward the cabin door as the restraints tighten, just a flick of the eyes. Less than a second. The boarding officer catches it. Hold here. Two-person check below. The cabin door opens slowly. Hinges squeal just enough to sound neglected. Inside, the space is cramped and staged. A cooler. Empty water bottles. A radio mounted in place but powered off. The floor is clean in places it should not be. Then they see the hatch. Centered. Flush-mounted. Sealed with a ring of fresh sealant that has not had time to collect dirt. Thick tape layered over the edges. Plastic beneath it, pulled tight. That is not maintenance. That is packaging. The boarding officer kneels and presses down. The deck does not flex. Whatever is below is dense. Heavy. Packed tight. Bridge, he says into the shoulder mic. We have a sealed compartment. Indicators consistent with restricted cargo. There is no celebration on the other end. Only acknowledgement. Proceed. Document everything. A blade comes out. The tape peels back with a sound that cuts through the quiet. Plastic gives way next, then rough wrapping beneath it. The smell hits first. Sharp. Heavy. Not fuel, not oil. The first bundle appears under the light. Square. Tight. Wrapped in layers built to survive weeks at sea. Another sits beside it. Then another. The compartment is full. They count without rushing. 19 bundles stacked with purpose, not convenience. Each one uniform, each one heavy enough to matter. A small corner is open just enough to confirm the nature of the cargo. Nobody says the word out loud, they do not need to. Back on deck, the three men stare straight ahead. No shouting, no pleading, no collapse. They understand the math better than anyone. Secure the compartment, the boarding officer orders. Photograph, tag, seal. Cameras click. Evidence numbers go on. Hands move carefully. Chain of custody starts now, not later. Every angle, every layer. Nothing missed, nothing assumed. One sailor checks the engine space. The blocks are hot, recently pushed hard. Another checks the fuel tanks. Auxiliary bladders are hidden where water storage should be. More weight. More intent. This was not random, the boarding officer says quietly. This was a delivery. The destroyer looms off the beam, silent and steady. From the bridge, the captain watches the live feed come in. He does not smile, he does not nod, he just watches. Confirm status. Vessel secured, the boarding officer replies. Crew held. Restricted cargo located. Significant quantity. That is enough. The three men are seated on deck now, backs to the cabin, legs folded, hands secured, guard posted. They do not look as the bundles are brought into the light one by one. They do not need to. Each bundle lands on the deck with a dull, final thud. The sun climbs higher. The sea stays calm. From a distance, it would look like a routine maintenance stop. Two small boats alongside a larger one, a gray naval vessel watching from farther out. But the outcome is already decided. In less than 30 minutes, a run planned for months is over. No chase, no escalation, no second chance. Just a ladder, a sealed hatch, and the weight of something that never reached shore. The deck becomes a workspace. Bundles are lifted one at a time, handled carefully not because of their value, but because of procedure. Each one is laid out in the sun, evenly spaced and photographed before it moves again. Gloves change, tags go on, numbers are read back and confirmed. Nothing is rushed. Chain of custody does not begin in a courtroom. It begins here on non-skid steel with sailors who know that one careless moment can undo months of work later. Every bundle is weighed, every wrap is noted, seals intact, no seawater damage, no contamination. This load was meant to arrive clean. It did not. The men sit under watch, backs straight, eyes forward, no conversation, no requests. They have already shifted from operators to part of the record. Their role ended the moment the hatch opened. A boarding team member checks the bilge again, bone dry, no leaks, no rot. This hull has not been fishing. It has been moving directly, quickly, and for one purpose. Initial count complete, the boarding officer reports to the bridge. 19 bundles confirmed. Uniform packaging. High confidence restricted shipment. The acknowledgement comes back immediately. No questions. The picture is clear. On the destroyer, the Combat Information Center updates the log. Time of discovery, coordinates, personnel involved, sensor feeds archived. The ship does not celebrate, it transitions. Because finding the cargo is only half the job. The vessel itself is now a controlled asset. Engines secured, navigation disabled, inventory underway, every compartment is checked. Not for drama, but for completeness. Runners hide extras, fuel, phones, backups. sometimes worse. Nothing more concerning turns up. It does not change the outcome. The cargo alone is enough to turn this quiet morning into a case that will move far beyond the water. Out at a distance, normal traffic continues. No one slows. No one knows what just changed beneath the surface of a network that stretches across borders and coastlines. The captain steps onto the bridge wing and looks down through binoculars. The bundles form a neat line now, like bricks for a wall that will never be built. Recover the teams. The RHIBs come alongside again. Lines pass, engines idle. The boarding team step back down the ladder with the same discipline they had when they climbed up. No high fives, no exchanged looks, just movement. The 3 men are transferred next. Counted, logged, watched, handled professionally, not kindly, not harshly, correctly. They are not questioned. That is not the mission. As the RHIBs peel away, the seized vessel sits low and quiet, stripped of purpose. Its engines will not run again under its own command. From the bridge, the captain watches the distance open. "This is why they stopped," someone says quietly. He nods. They stopped because running was no longer an option. Because weight steals speed. Because routes close. Because sometimes the ocean itself becomes a wall. Runners bet on gaps, on weather, on distraction, on luck. They do not bet on discipline. They do not bet on sensors that keep watching. They do not bet on a gray hull being exactly where it was not supposed to be. Back inside, reports are finalized, numbers locked, photos cross-checked. Every step is deliberately boring. Boring holds up later. The estimated value is calculated and written down. A huge number, large enough to make headlines. No one on board reacts. The number is not the point. Impact is. One shipment removed means more than one shipment delayed. Routes go cold. Handlers miss deadlines. Payments do not arrive. Questions get asked in places far from the sea. That is the part no one sees on camera. The destroyer adjusts course slightly, returning to her patrol line. Ahead, the sea looks exactly as it did an hour earlier. Blue. Empty. Calm. Behind her, the seized boat drifts under control, waiting for handover. The moment has already passed. The operation took minutes. The preparation took years. The consequences will last much longer. And for the crew, it is simple. Another log entry. Another watch rotation. Another day where nothing dramatic happened, except the right ship was in the right place and a run ended before it ever touched land. The handover happens without ceremony. A cutter comes alongside later. Steel meets steel in open water. Paperwork changes hands. Evidence changes custody. The seized vessel is logged, catalogued, and towed under authority that needs no performance. By the time the lines are cast off, the destroyer is already turning back onto her patrol track. No speeches, no staged photos. The mission does not end with applause. It ends with continuity. From the bridge, the sea looks exactly the same as it did before the contact first appeared on radar. That is the point. The ocean does not advertise outcomes. It absorbs them. What happened out here did not rely on speed or force. It relied on certainty. Sensors that stayed alert. Procedures that stayed clean. People who did not improvise when the moment arrived. This is forward interdiction. Stop the shipment before it becomes a problem on land, before it funds something larger, before it disappears into places no patrol can reach. The destroyer does not chase rumors. She patrols math, routes, probabilities, patterns that repeat until they do not. The people moving these shipments learn patterns too. They test them. They probe them. They disguise themselves inside ordinary traffic. They bet that a gray hull will not be there on the one morning that matters. This time, they lost that bet. One shipment gone does not end an entire trade, but it fractures it. Delays cascade. Backup routes start moving when they were supposed to stay quiet. Calls get made that were never supposed to happen. Schedules slip. Trust erodes. That ripple does not show up on radar, but it is real. Back on board, watches rotate. The forward mount powers down. Decks are washed clean. Cameras are stowed. Logs are signed. The ship returns to baseline readiness, exactly where she began. No one talks about the number. No one needs to. What matters is that the cargo never touched shore. The crew never had to escalate. The ship never had to raise its voice to be heard. Restraint is not weakness. It is deliberate control. A destroyer does not need to chase every fast boat to win this fight. It needs to be present where no one expects it. It needs to turn uncertainty into inevitability. That is the message. Not broadcast, not shouted, just enforced. Somewhere far from this stretch of water, someone will notice a shipment that never arrived. There will be questions without answers, adjustments made too late, routes rewritten with gaps where confidence used to be. Out here, the sea keeps its secrets, but the system remembers everything. The patrol continues. Someday, another contact will appear, another silhouette that does not quite fit, another decision point measured in minutes instead of hours. And when it happens, the process will look the same. Quiet bridge, clear orders, no drama. Because the real power is not in what happens when things get loud, it is in how quietly they end before they ever begin. So here's the question. If you were standing that watch, staring at a contact that would not answer, would not identify itself, and then stopped when it should have run, when would you decide the outcome was already clear? At the acceleration, at the silence, or at the moment it stopped and waited? Drop your answer in the comments, because out here, the difference between a chase and a clean intercept is not luck, it is judgment.